So let me guess, you clicked on this video because you want to see my cat Gatsby do something cute at the end. Oh, but maybe let's talk about the fans first, and then we'll focus more on the Gatsby at the very end. You good? All right. So here's the deal. Ever since I built my computer back here and I completely water cooled it, I've been using these EK Vardar F4 fans. They are highly regarded for their static pressure, which basically means they spin around and they spit very concentrated air that's very good to push through a radiator fin, and they've been, fine. They're fans. And I know what you're thinking, they're fans, how much better can they actually get? And unless we're talking about RGB, above a certain price point, usually fans are quite similar. But here is where I was wrong. You see, most manufacturers' websites just list the peak performance for a fan. So that means the max RPM and the lowest RPM. But when you see values for airflow or for static pressure or for noise, usually they are related not only to the fan working in clean air, which means the fan pushing air without being, I almost got my finger stuck there, which means the fan spinning like this without being interrupted on the other side by a radiator, but they also are listed when it comes to the peak performance of the fan. And usually people don't just crank their fan RPM to the max and just leave it there and never touch it again. It's actually quite uncommon to see the performance of a fan listed on a manufacturer's website for ranges that people are more likely to be using daily, which is between 700 and 1200 RPM. And the same thing goes for noise. A fan rotating uninterrupted, it's always quiet than when the same fan is attached to a radiator or to a cooler. And the same thing goes for pitch. It's not only, we're not only here talking about loudness, you have to keep in mind the profile of the sound. If it's very high pitched and inconsistent and rattly sometimes with the motor making a lot of noise, or if it's lower and a more consistent hum of lower pitch, that can be, even if it's louder, that can be much more easily tuned out by your ear when compared to the other option of the high, whiny, high-pitched noise that you sometimes get with laptop fans, for example. So it's essential to properly control how a fan reacts to temperature changes, and I will talk about a great open source software that I found recently in just a second, but it's also essential to choose the right fans for your build. And after doing a lot of research and given that I need 12 fans for my system, I settled on the Artic P12 PWM PST CO fans. And I promise, until the end of the video, I will explain why the long ass name, but first, let's focus on more interesting things. I chose them because they are very, very affordable, at prices ranging from around 5 to 10 euros per fan. They look clean, simple, which, I'm all up for since I enjoy my lighting done with LED strips instead of fan RGB rings. And from all the research that I did, they look like incredible performance, way above the price that they're charging. But like I said, looking great on paper is only half the story. They have to perform great in real life. And to my surprise, they even managed to surpass what I was initially expecting. And if you're new to the channel, maybe consider subscribing. There's usually a new tech video out every week-ish, not that much recently, but more in the near future. And there's always a cameo of my cat Gatsby all the way at the very end of every video, so what more could you want? So here's how we tested these fans. At first, I tried to create a scenario that guaranteed a consistent amount of heat. And I did that by mining some crypto with my RTX 3090 locked in at 310 watts. This simulates a lot of consistent heat, and when comparing 700, 850, 1000, and 1150 RPM, the Artic P12 performed quite well at lower speeds, being able to keep the temperatures way under control even at a super slow 700 RPM. And as I tested higher loads like the Apex Legends lobby menu that pegs the GPU to 99% at 360 watts, the maximum temperature that I saw was 57 degrees at 700 RPM, with a steady improvement until it reached 48C at 1150 RPM. I also tested what would be the minimum possible temperature in my current environment with my current water cooling loop and the fans at 100 100%, which translated to 1675 RPM, and that measured to around 43 degrees Celsius. So the 5-degree delta when compared to 1150 RPM doesn't seem like a worth it trade-off giving all the extra noise. And when testing out a game that uses more CPU and also maxes out the GPU like Forza Horizon 5, I saw very similar temperature variation as the fan RPM scaled up. But more important than splitting hairs for a couple of degrees, noise is where I saw the largest improvement over my previous EK Vardar fans. These 12 Artic P12 fans, and man, I had to say that a lot before I could say 12 Artic P12 fans, they all attach to radiators inside the case, and spinning at 1150 RPM, they max out at 37 decibels. That's very, very respectable for a lot of fans inside a case attached to radiators, and if you lower the max RPM to 1000 RPM, they are whisper quiet. With that said, I use this software called Fan Speed Control V98 that is open source and available on GitHub. I'll leave some links in the video description, but it works so much better than the stock ASUS AI suite that I've used before that I was able to create a smooth fan curve that controls all 12 fans all at the same time and scales from 0 all the way up to 1100 RPM. And I have that linked to the GPU temperature, and only when the GPU hits 55C will the fans go to 1100 RPM. And since it only reaches 1100 RPM when I'm gaming, I can definitely say that I never hear my PC at all. Well, that's a little bit of a lie, since I still have 30 terabytes of hard drives just spinning around on my side because I haven't built a NAS yet, maybe something to do in the future, but the fan noise, it was such a substantial improvement from my EK Vardar fans, and there probably will be an improvement if you're looking on the market for a quiet, smooth noise when it comes to how a fan sounds. And I can definitely see a lot of people being very happy with how these sound and how they sound, particularly when attached to radiators and to a cooler. It will be pretty much the same. Oh, and I almost forgot the name. I mean, it's Artic P12 because Artic, it's a brand, and P12, it's the name of the fan, and the PWM is because they are PWM fans, which mean they have 4 pins to connect on your motherboard, and then the PST part is because they can share that PWM signal along multiple fans, so every fan you can plug the next fan to it. So you can imagine that me having 12 fans, it was so much easier to just plug every fan to each other and then plug all of them to a single port on the motherboard. And the CO part is because they are rated for continuous operation. So if you don't have your PC on all the time, you can even save a couple of bucks by going with the normal non-CO brand of the product, and it will save money and will sound very similar to these ones. Oh, but you were still here from the beginning because of the Feline Action that I promised before. Nothing to do with computers or fans or anything of the sort. You're just here because you are a true fan of the channel, and I had to make that joke. And you're here for some Feline Action. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed and you stick around. A lot of great stuff coming to the channel in the near future. Everybody says that, but it might actually be true on this channel in the next coming months and going into next year. Thanks for watching. You guys are great, and yeah, bye.